In this section, you will learn how to trigger a lambda function asynchronously. For that, we'll be using S3 as a trigger to the lambda function. We'll be creating two lambdas in this project. The use case we are going to work on is a patient checkout use case. Let's say we are working for a hospital, and at the end of the day, the hospital management will upload a JSON file which will have the patient information who have checked out of the hospital on that day. Here we have two patients. When this file is uploaded to S3, we'll configure our lambda in such a way that whenever a file is uploaded to S3, S3 will trigger this lambda function, at which point the lambda function will read this file. It will create one object per patient. First, all this will be converted into Java objects. So this is how the Pojo will look like that you are going to create. This Pojo represents the patient. For each patient, the first lambda function, which is the patient checkout lambda function, will create one message and it will put that message onto the SNS topic. So the first lambda doesn't do much work. It simply reads the file, takes one patient at a time, converts it into a message or deserializes it and puts it onto SNS topic. And we'll be coding a second lambda called bill management lambda. This lambda will be triggered by the message on the SNS topic. SNS is the resource that will trigger our second lambda function. Again, this function also will be a asynchronous function. It receives the data, it will process the data and render it as a report or into the logs. So that is how we are going to work with asynchronous lambda invocation using S3 and also SNS as our lambda triggers. We are going to create two lambda functions. I'll be walking you through the details of these lambda functions and the S3 API that we are going to use and all the dependencies that we are going to add to the pom.xml in the next few lectures. And also, I'll explain in detail about the template.aml file which will create the entire infrastructure for us.